This session is going to be our keynote, another one of our keynote speakers, Donna Dupont, and she is the co-founder Participatory Futures Global Swarm. And she's going to be talking to us today about leading through uncertainty and change, women in resilience. And she is actually working in Bermuda. She is doing the digital nomad and one of the first to be a part of Bermuda's initiative to work from Bermuda. And so I just want to welcome Donna Dupont to our speaking opportunity, and just can't wait to hear what powerful information you have to empower and inspire us.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this conference and to be able to share my experience as an entrepreneur in the space that I work in. And so just to clarify, I work in a number of global projects, including what we call Participatory Futures Global Swarm, which connects me to futurists and designers around the world. And but today I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Purple Compass. And Purple Compass is a company that I founded 4 years ago. And it really is all about disaster risk management and sustainable development. And it's been a passion of mine for the last 4 years and growing. And it's been an interesting journey as an entrepreneur. Hasn't always been easy, but it's been the most rewarding. And it's allowed me to work with people leading change around the world. And being able to learn from the experience and how they are working with really complex problems, challenges, and how they're navigating uncertainty. So what I'll be sharing today is some of those top insights that I've learned from the 4 years of working with those that are leading change around the world, whether they're in healthcare or emergency disaster management or military operations. I also work a lot with entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs that are leading sustainability in very traditional sectors like mining and oil and gas. And so it's inspiring all around to work with all these different professionals and to learn across how to navigate in today's very complex and very uncertain environment. So I recognize that one of the themes of today's conference is branding. So I thought I would share a little bit of my branding journey, and hopefully that might inspire you in terms of your branding if you're looking to start a business or you're looking to evolve your branding. So my company is very mission oriented. And before I even registered my company, I really wanted to be clear about what I was going to offer. I have a very long-standing career working in healthcare and emergency disaster management. And so my journey to entrepreneurship came much later in my career. And it was very much an unknown. I didn't really have any experience as an entrepreneur, but I knew that I wanted to work with those leading change around the world. And I was very open to what that could look like. But I wanted to be clear about what I was going to offer and what was unique and how I was different from other businesses. And so I wanted to integrate a lot of the work that I've done and studied around foresight, innovation, systems, understanding patterns and trends and behaviors to help people and companies really navigate. And so for me, navigation of all of these complex issues and challenges was a key component to what I wanted to create as part of my business. I also wanted to bring a very future-oriented lens. I wanted people to not only just navigate around them and within their immediate vicinity, but I wanted them to expand their lens out and kind of see what the potential and possibility could be for the future. And I think as innovators, as entrepreneurs, we naturally are attuned to these unique ideas and opportunities that we tend to sense them and we tend to notice them. So I really wanted to have more of a structured process to be able to do that. but I also wanted people to help people really come up with new ideas, innovative ideas for the changing environment. And I wanted to align with their future vision. So the idea of a compass really made sense. Um, However, the actual logo was a little unknown to me at the time in terms of what it would look like. But I knew that it was definitely a compass that I wanted to focus on. I was helping people find their path forward. And it just came one day when I was with a colleague, and we were looking at prototypes of branding, and then all of a sudden we saw the compass rose, and the compass rose is a North Star. And I thought that's so perfect because a lot of what we do is North Star strategy, helping people articulate a vision. Because in order to navigate a path, you need a vision of where you're going or heading towards. And so that star became very important. But we wanted to make that star different. We wanted to, it just not a normal star, but a purple star. And so I get asked a lot about why the color purple. Well, purple is the color of change and transformation. And so we weren't just helping people and organizations just navigate for a vision, but we were really helping them reach for their highest vision and adapting and transforming ideas. And so therefore that was the start of the branding of Purple Compass, and our three tagline words: navigate, anticipate, and innovate. So navigating complexity and uncertainty, anticipating the future changes that lie ahead, and really helping to identify new opportunities for innovation to build a better future. So hopefully you found that helpful in terms of a mission-oriented company, and that's how we organized our, that's how our branding evolved over time. And it did take some time, and we do see it as a journey, and we are on this journey with all of our customers and clients. So, as you know, we are living in a very unprecedented time. COVID-19 has been disruptive around the world, to all sectors, and to entrepreneurs in particular, especially female and women entrepreneurs. The disruption and the impact has been disproportionate, though, for women, mostly because of just the challenges, the inequality gaps that exist currently in the system, and some of the challenges that some entrepreneurs had to face regarding their livelihoods, taking on perhaps responsibilities, home care, or caring for their elders or for family responsibilities during the pandemic, taking on additional responsibilities of educating children at home and being available. It's a lot of stress, and it's been very challenging for women in a number of ways. And so there's been quite a few reports published around documenting some of these challenges. And it's important for us to be aware of this, because these challenges potentially at a global level can really hold women back in terms of moving forward, especially around the global agenda and around entrepreneurship and gender equality. And so addressing some of the challenges for women around the world and coming up with solutions for these issues is extremely important. So if you're interested in learning more, I would recommend taking a look at some of these documents just to see at a global level and around the world what some of the experiences have been. But on the flip side of the challenge are opportunities. And so the pandemic has also opened up various opportunities for entrepreneurs to pivot, to move their business virtually, to offer their product or their services in different ways. And what we do know, and what we see, being published from different organizations around the world, is the important role that women play in shifting our paradigm, our world, towards creating a more sustainable world. And it's important that women's ideas are brought to the forefront. They are different. They're very, they can be transformative in terms of where the challenges are in our system right now and how things need to evolve and adjust for women, to address inequality around the world, to improve the environment, to improve economic well-being for women around the world. These are important things. And in order to realize the Sustainable Development Goals, women need to be actively at all levels part of the conversation and part of actually on the ground, really helping to move this agenda forward. So SDG 5 around gender inequality and empowerment is such an important one, because without it, we really can't realize any of the other goals within the SDG platform. So again, if you're interested in learning more about that, I would recommend, there's a number of different excellent resources available from the UNDP and from different sustainable development platforms that really speak about the role of women in this space and creating the future that we all need and really aspire to build. So for me, my background, as I mentioned earlier, is crisis management. I worked frontline in hospital. I worked at the provincial level, leading planning and efforts, but also responding in an operations center during a health crisis, like a pandemic. And so crisis is a really important part of change and transformation. A lot of times we want to avoid these pain points because it can be very disruptive to our lives personally or within our business. But sometimes it's great to take a step back and look at it from a different lens, because it can really provide a gateway to understand what is changing, what things are no longer sustainable, and what needs to be let go of in order to create new opportunities for new ideas and to transform. So usually a crisis, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of turbulence, there can be some instability and fragility in the system. And the system is going to do one of two things. It's either going to collapse, or it's going to evolve, it's going to reorganize, and it's going to find the opportunity to transform and shape a new direction. And so that is the other side of a crisis that really, in the work that I do, I try to, bring forth is, yes, these are the risks, these are the challenges, but what are we learning from this experience? How do we want to adapt and evolve and shape the future going forward, so that we're learning through the crisis and that we are being proactive about shaping the future we want. So this brings me to a really an algorithm that, as a designer, and a lot of designers love, and it's the work of Joseph Campbell. I don't know if you are familiar with who Joseph Campbell is, but he was a historian. He documented the stories of cultures around the world, and through his research and his work, he found this monomyth, and it's the human story, and it's your story, it's my story. It's the story that everybody goes through, no matter what journey they're on, whether they're just starting out and they're aspiring to be an entrepreneur, where they've already took the leap and they are, or they are building a much larger organization. This story is all about change and transformation. And it occurs along three separate parts, right? So the way this story unfolds is that the hero, which is you, right? The entrepreneur, the person with a vision, with wanting to step out of your comfort zone. You leave your known world and you enter and you decide, that this is the time I must cross this threshold and I must step into this new path. And this is an unknown path, and it can be very there's a lot of uncertainty. It can be it can be scary. So you need a lot of courage to be able to do it. But what this path is about initiation. This path is about going through that journey, and you're going to come across challenges and obstacles and all kinds of things in your path. And the idea behind this is that through those obstacles, by going through that, you are going to learn, you're going to grow, through the challenge. And you're going to let go of things that don't work for you and embrace the new. And through those little micro changes that you make, eventually they become larger changes, and then until it becomes transformational. And it's exciting because you are, evolving in a new space, from your previous world. But the important part about this journey is not just the transformation. That's not where it is the most powerful. The most powerful part of it is coming back to tell the story. It's the return. And that's very much what this conference is about today. It's about, as entrepreneurs, going down the path, learning, developing wisdom through our journey, mining that knowledge, and coming back and sharing it with others so that you can inspire new people to also take that journey. And that's how we inspire and empower other women to transform the world. So I love this this particular design, algorithm, because it speaks to all of us, and it speaks to, on that journey, the importance of developing new mindsets and skill sets. And it is a learning journey, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But it's a journey that you need to go through. And when you look back over your path, you will have seen the evolution, and the change that's taken place. So this brings me to this whole aspect of the journey and our world, and this whole shifting of, a paradigm. So our current world to the new world, to a new vision for the future. And in the world of futures and design, we use the iceberg as a metaphor and a model to understand kind of the system. And you can see from the diagram, like just at the tip of the iceberg are just kind of the events and the challenges that happen on the surface. As you go deeper, you start to understand patterns and trends. So you get a little bit more insight into why these events are happening. And if you go a little deeper into the structure, you might even understand the relationship, deeper in terms of how the structures work. But the alchemy of transformation, whether it's transforming your own world, your own personal life, or your business or society, comes from the internal. And this is where the mental model part of the paradigm exists. And this is the bottom of that iceberg, where it's all about, what are your beliefs? What are your values? How do you think and how do you feel? And what's your story? What's your narrative? That internal dialogue. And what are the, mindsets that you need to have, and skill sets, in order to be able to bring about the change? So I want to introduce this idea of an internal compass. And because a lot of times when we talk about transformation, we talk about transformation in the external world, and fixing this or solving that. And yes, that does need to happen. But the change happens on the inside first, with a new idea, a new vision of potential and possibility, new values shaping the future, different principles to live by. And that guides and navigates the structures and all of the different pieces that need to evolve and shift in order to create it in the real world. So it's moving from external to internal. So we're going to talk about that internal compass. And part of that internal compass needs to be exercised. It needs to be strong. It needs to be able to withstand the challenges, because there are a lot of challenges. Change is not easy. And when you try to change a paradigm, a structure that's been around for a long time, there's a lot of resistance to change. And not everyone sees change the same way. Some people fear change. and they fear the unknown, and they're not really open to opportunity. And so you need to be have a strong internal compass, and you need to be resilient. So from my work, I've as I mentioned, I've worked with people around the world in military and emergency management, health, as well as entrepreneurs and futurists and designers. And these are the three ingredients. I call it a recipe for resilience. It's your internal guidance system that are really important to strengthen and to grow in order to navigate uncertainty and change. And they are agility. And what we're talking about is cognitive agility. So, agility in learning, constantly learning new information and making micro changes, making adjustments, things like that. The second one is anticipation. So, the most resilient systems in nature are anticipatory. They understand what's changing in their environment. They have a sense. They pick up on signals and trends, and they recognize it, and they anticipate, and they make the changes needed. And the last one is adaptive capacity or adaptation, and it's being able to take the information and be able to actually put it into action and to make the changes. It can be incremental, it can be transformative, it can be whatever it needs to be based on the situation you're in. So these are the three ingredients. We're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on each one. And I would love questions at the end in the Q&A. So if you have any questions as I'm going through these, please feel free to type it in the Q&A, because these are really important ingredients to strengthen in each and every one of us. So the first one is agility in learning. And so this is really exercising our cognitive agility. So it's about being very people oriented. So listening to people, getting feedback, being open to change, being open to suggestions of where things might need improvement. It's having a lot of awareness too in terms of your connection to to whatever you're doing, whether it's your customers, whether it's your environment. It's being able to learn and to be able to take that knowledge and put it into action. And so this is very important. So you want to be able to do this from a business standpoint in terms of whatever product or service you're offering to your clients. And you probably do this through getting feedback. And feedback is one excellent way to really get a sense of what, your customer experience is like, and maybe what they're looking for, and maybe they're looking for something different or new, and they might give you a new idea. So getting that is super important. But also it's about expanding perspectives. So it's also looking beyond maybe just what you're doing in business, and looking at some of the trends and the patterns and the shifts that are happening that could impact the way you deliver your business, you deliver your service, and it might inspire you to offer it in a different way. So by expanding the lens in which we see, our world, that also is an opportunity to learn. And so you can learn from others. And some entrepreneurs learn through others that are perhaps working in different environments. For example, I learn a lot from tech entrepreneurs that are in the tech field. I am not a tech person, but I love technology, and I see the value of technology, and I see the opportunity to scale and to reach people in a very different way. And so I've always admired, and I've also always been inspired with the way perhaps those that are working in tech think about the future and how they see opportunities. And then I look to see, well, how would my business or my service interact or integrate with that thinking? And is there an opportunity to collaborate or deliver in a different way? So that's just one example. There are so many examples. So I would encourage you to expand your perspective and to see what others are doing as a learning opportunity and it might stimulate different ideas for you and what could be possible. I think it's also important to recognize that we we see the world to our level of understanding. So the more you expand your perspective, the more you expand outside and you acquire new knowledge areas, you start to see the world in a different way. You start to see opportunities in a different way. And sometimes, it's an evolution where, for example, for me, I've been teaching and doing this work and facilitating for a number of years. And the journey itself, um, and all of the experience, I wouldn't have known this 4 years ago before I started. I needed the experience. I needed to expand my perspectives. I needed to work with other sectors. I needed to, work with other individuals. And it expanded my understanding of what resonated with me. And so that was a very important part of my journey, and it was something I wouldn't have known years ago, as I mentioned. So it's part of the evolution of learning as an entrepreneur. The next critical part in this recipe for resilience is anticipation. And anticipation gets into what we call futures literacy. And it's a different way of understanding the future. Some people think of the future as predictable, or it's our destiny, or it's already predetermined. But in this particular context, anticipation is all about having a deep awareness, almost a presence and sensing of what's changing in the system, what's emerging, what are new opportunities, what are those disruptions that are creating new opportunities, and paying attention to the trends, those emerging issues and challenges, because they could inspire new innovation, new products, new services, and small weak signals of change. And sometimes these are things that we notice and we're like, that's interesting. I don't know what to do with that information quite yet, but I see a potential if that were to ever grow. And that's a signal of change. So you're probably picking up on. And so those are important to understand. And so to really understand futures and how to use the future to shape the future, we use a lot of a cone metaphor. And in this particular diagram, there's an image of a flashlight. And you can see in the middle, the direct beam is where a lot of people focus on immediately what's in front of them and what's probable. But if you were to expand the perspective and look at the lighter, peripherally, and look at the edges of the beam, you can see other patterns starting to emerge. And those are really helpful because those really signal potential and possibility. So this is where, we talk about how to use foresight, how to understand what's changing, what could be emerging, anticipating future disruption, and also what that could mean for your business and how you may want to adapt or evolve, or maybe you're looking for a competitive advantage in a very, competitive market. So it's all about that. It's really about understanding and what's potentially laying in front of us, and how to be very robust in our strategies as we adapt. And that leads to the last part of this recipe, which is all about adaptive capacity. Adaptation. We hear a lot about adaptation in terms of the importance of being able to adapt. And there are different kinds. There's incremental adaptation, where you make small micro changes, and those are very helpful because you're making changes as you need, as you're learning, and all those small changes can add up to big transformative changes. Might take some time, but it definitely can lead to that. But you can also have robust strategy, and that's transformative. And you could, decide, I want to offer my business in a very different way that will be transformative. And that would be more of a transformative, robust strategy that is really about, changing the game. It's about, having a competitive advantage, right, in your market. And so both are quite helpful, and both really are all about moving from this vulnerability, in terms of what are the challenges, what are the issues, what is my business facing, how do I cope, what do I need, and moving towards not just coping it, because sometimes you have to cope in the short term, but then you regenerate. You figure out, okay, what am I learning? What do I need to let go of? You adapt and then potentially transform. So it is a continuum. I love, on the right hand side, there's this eco cycle planning diagram. And I love this diagram. It's from Liberating Structures, which is an organization that does a lot of great work in design. And they use nature as a mentor metaphor, which I use a lot in my work. And it really looks to the seasons to really understand what transformation looks like. And this is going to be applied to you at an individual level, in your business, or globally. And so it scales in whichever way you want to apply it. But what's really interesting about this is that there are different traps that we get stuck in, right? When we're trying to adapt to our environment. And, we can get stuck in a rigidity trap if we're a very, perhaps a business that's been around for a long time, that has very, clear, strong structures, and maybe as a large organization may not be as agile or able to adapt the way a smaller organization would be able to do. So that's a trap potentially, is that rigidity element. On the other side is a potential poverty trap where you could have all of these great ideas, but you just don't have the funding to bring them to life and to be able to grow them as a seed and help them mature towards full development. So the idea is to try to find ways to avoid these traps as you're adapting in your life or in your business. And one really important part of this cycle is the creative destruction. And we always think about destruction as negative, but there is a value in terms of being able to let go of things that perhaps are no longer relevant or sustainable, or things have changed. And having that courage to be able to say, maybe we need to let go of that part. And the letting go is really important because it doesn't weigh you down. The letting go creates space for the new idea and for the gestation, that to plant a new seed in order to move forward. So I want to encourage you to think about what you have in your organization or your business or in your life that needs a little bit of creative destruction, right? And this particular, type of design concept resonates with the fall winter, right? Where the leaves in the fall, if you live in, Canada, where I'm from, or other parts of the world where we have the 4 seasons, in the fall, you see the leaves falling away. And it's a beautiful symbol of letting go, and things go dormant over the winter in order to create space for the spring and for the new regeneration. So that same principle applies to our lives and to our business in terms of being able to adapt. So I want you to think about things that you can, apply creative destruction to, and then what are some new seeds that you want to plant, new ideas that can move your business forward in a positive way, in a way that aligns with your North Star and your vision for what you aspire to create. So something to think about. If you have ideas or questions, please put them in the Q&A. We're happy to continue that conversation. And so to wrap up my presentation, I just want to again, really emphasize this importance of the internal compass and that mental model, that mindset that we hold as entrepreneurs and as women in entrepreneurship, to navigate not just only our life, but our business. And it's important that we give it the attention. So those 3 ingredients that I talked about, so agility and learning, anticipation and adaptive capacity. So to recalibrate and to strengthen those elements, action learning, to be open to getting that feedback and willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. That is really the mindset when it comes to navigating a situation, a world like we have today, and challenging our status quo thinking and our own bias, and challenging that, if we think something is not possible, before we dismiss it, maybe go a little bit deeper to understand why we think that way and what's our perspective and our mental model, our belief. And maybe that belief needs to be challenged. Maybe that assumption needs to be challenged. And so that's a lot of what we do in futures and design. And it really opens you up to learn to see the world with new eyes, new opportunities for change, for transformation, and to evolve and to evolve. And so that's what I'd like to leave you with in terms of that internal compass and that importance. And hopefully those 3 ingredients for resilience you find helpful. And if you would love to learn more about futures, please feel free to email me. My email is on the screen. You can take a look at my website. I'm in the process of updating all of my projects for 2021 on the site. But if you have any questions, happy to answer them, and happy to answer them now in the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you for that great information. Hopefully, like I've said before, that these women are absorbing all this great information and things that's going to help them in their everyday lives. Again, whether they're working for themselves or working for someone else, I think that everyone can learn from what you've taught for us. I know for me, a couple of my takeaways are the future is female. That is something I saw a year ago when I was doing a drawing, and I was amazed. I was like, this is me. This is my new anthem. The future is female, and so very positive. Something else was women being active in the conversation, and I think that's very important. Our voices have to be heard, and so we have to make sure that we're making that happen and we're doing the things that's gonna, put us to the front. And then the other thing was the ability to be able to be adaptable. I think all of things some of them are new to us, or some of them are just going to take a bit of time because, we've been doing things our way for so long. And so being able to make that shift and being adaptable is something that we're going to work on, but it's definitely something that's possible. And so we do have some questions in the chat. So I'm just going to go into the Q&A and feed those questions to you. And so our first question is, what are some techniques that you can use to challenge the status quo thinking?
That's a good one. That's a very, very good one. A lot of the techniques that we use to challenge status quo thinking is to getting people to really articulate, to dig a little deeper, to understand their mental model. So there's a triangle to a model when we talk about mental model. So it's how people think, how they feel, and their behaviors and their actions. And so attached to those things in their mental model are the assumptions. And a lot of times there are unconscious assumptions being made that maybe the individual who is resistant to change or wants a status quo are not even aware of. So a lot of times, before we even propose a solution, we start to, dig a little deeper into the why. Why do we not want to move in that direction? Why do we not feel comfortable? What is our assumption? What is our belief about that? How do we feel about that? And when you start to dig deeper and you ask those questions, then you start to get at the root issue. And it could be very different from what you thought it was. And so when you dig deeper and you get to that why, and you might have to go down a few levels and ask why and why and why, but once you do, you get to the root of the problem. And if you can propose an idea to address that, then you're creating space to hopefully move out of the status quo thinking.
Okay, great. Next question. How did you learn to see with new eyes when typically life build bias?
Yes, it's a lot of awareness. So a lot of this work, what's very interesting is, studying design, you study it academically, you practice it. all these things. But when you go deep into anything, you start to get to the spiritual side of the practice. And what was really fascinating for me is the spiritual side of understanding this is presencing and really understanding and being present just with your having awareness in terms of your own thinking, your own biases. And it requires to observe your actions, reflect on your choices, and to do it consciously. And so a lot of this can be applied to the personal in terms of personal transformation, designing your life. And so it's an active effort to unpack that in a very conscious way. And that's how you can address your own bias. Now, if you are not bringing that level of consciousness to the table, then you might not be quite ready to see with new eyes until perhaps something changes or challenges you, transforms or challenges your world in a way, maybe a crisis that will force you to look at it in a different way. Great
Okay,
question.
so we have Regina, the next question. The creative destruction process and new seeds seem to be a scary process, but necessary for growth. How?
So, you mean like how to make it happen? I think that's probably what they're asking, is how to take a step forward. So
the follow-up is, how have you approached this in your own business?
Oh, in my own business. Oh, okay. Well, really interesting. So when I started my own business, I really thought that I was going to be working with the humanitarian sector. That is exactly where I thought. I thought that's where the opportunity was. That was where I wanted to make change. And what was interesting was that I didn't find as many opportunities in that space. And what was emerging and presenting itself was working with the military. And I thought, wait a minute, this seems like the exact opposite of what I want to do. But what I realized was that I had tapped into a very different group of people in the Canadian military that were looking to transform thinking of future generals and senior officers. And they were introducing these types of methodologies. And so for me, as I started to evolve my business, I started to see this in a very different way. And so I had to let go of some of the ideas of how I thought my business would operate and evolve, and planted myself in a different place. And I started to learn, and I started to see, oh, these are command and control type of thinkers that see the world in a different way, and they have a very different relationship to power. And if I can work with them to help them see a different perspective or to understand their mental models, then I can probably work with just about anybody. So it helped me to recognize the value and the opportunity, and how I could take that knowledge eventually 4 years later and bring it to a much broader platform, and then bring it to women and female entrepreneurs around the world. So great question. Great question.
And then we have Jamila, who asks, what experiences helped you to reach this level of understanding?
Oh, I think for me, it's been a deep dive. Like, so I decided when I wanted to go deep and really study futures and design, I just jumped all in. And that's just been my personality. I decided to do a master's degree, but the real work was putting it into action. So you can learn a lot of things in whatever your domain is, but once you start to put it into action and you start to put it out there in the world and get feedback, that's how you learn. And that's how you grow. And that's how you build your confidence. And so that's been the journey for me. And for me, it's been, finding the right methodologies, the right tools, because there's thousands of them in the field of design and futures. So which ones do you pick? You can't do them all. Not all of them apply. And some of them are way too complicated, right? So it's about navigating all of that and saying, okay. And for me, I had to, ask why. I had to really think about who my audience was, what they wanted, what would help them, and then to go deeper in learning. And then, so over time, just doing that repeatedly, you build up quite a bit of knowledge, and you don't realize it in the small steps. It's when you look back over a year or 2 years or 3 years, then you see those big leaps. And so I think important part for entrepreneurs is journaling, and maybe journaling, some of the positive, but some of the challenges, and in keeping track of those things. And I would love to be more of a consistent journaler. I'm a little bit resistant when it comes to that, but I see the value of it, because when I do journal regularly and I look back on it, I'm like, wow, that's good to know that 2 years ago I was struggling with that and I found a way through it. So I would say for you, how to learn and to grow is just to start putting your knowledge and your ideas into action, and to not be afraid, and to get feedback. That's the only way you're going to build confidence and grow stronger and stronger and stronger.
Okay, we have Lisa who said, fantastic presentation, lots of excellent info here to consider and implement. We also have Tracy Aswood who said, the creative destruction component is something I would like more information on. This is definitely a challenge for me. And we also have a lot of people are asking for the presentation afterwards. They would like to review it and get some more tips and hints. I will say I have 2 more questions to answer, but I will say that you can always go to the speaker page. Make sure you visit the speaker page. We do have Donna's will be there. You will be able to have her information, and you can always contact her for any other information you want to explore or expand on. The next question we have is, how do you get others, specifically males, to accept and understand this new way of thinking?
That's a challenge. That's not always easy. And I find that in the work that I do, I'm often one of very few women in the room sometimes. And I find that the only person you can really change is yourself, right? You can't change other people. All you can do is seek to understand their perspective, maybe dig a little deeper and to understand where they're coming from, maybe their why, the way they're thinking, maybe that internal compass or mental model I talked about. But all you can control is how you respond to that, right? And how you're changing, and how you're evolving and you're adapting. And a lot of times it's also, for those that are resistant, it's about finding a common connection, a common point where you agree on. That could be that starting point to build a bigger conversation. So it's not easy, but definitely that's something that I think is really important, and it's a skill set that you can definitely evolve and learn and strengthen. That's a great question.
Okay, and Francia has asked, you spoke of tech trends and future literacy. Any suggestions for general resources?
To explore trends? There's lots of different resources out there. I know in the world that I work in, futures, there's like technology futurists that are like forecasting all kinds of incredible technologies that are on the horizon, the ones that are emerging in the next few years, the ones that they think will come in the future that could be game changers. So I would just Google, tech trends. And if you want to get more specific in women in tech and trends, you'll probably find a lot of really interesting material. If you want some specifics, please feel free to send me an email and what you're looking for, and then I can point you a little bit more in the right direction.
All right, Donna, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Looking forward to connecting with you in the future. Ladies, we have a couple minutes to take a break, get a snack, stretch, move around, get your body going. And then we have our next session, which is going to be at 12 o'clock. And then that is going to be our panel discussion on women in finance. You don't want to miss out. So make sure that you go around, check a few things, check the vendor pages, speaker pages, sponsor pages. All of these are going to give you points to get prizes towards the end. And just like you said, make sure you take that break and then rejoin at 12 o'clock in the women's session. You can look on your schedule, pop into that link, and we'll see you there. Thanks so much, Donna.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone.
Thank you as well. Bye.